Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I know you are scattered all over Africa, perhaps in other parts of the world, and it's a huge pleasure to have the opportunity of talking to you in this amazing webinar organized by the Lawyers Hub. I'm very grateful and very honored to be with you here. Well, legal innovation, what's happening? This will not be a speech, this will be a conversation where we are speaking. I am in your room, in your computer, and we are speaking to the heart and to the minds of incredible innovators or future innovators. What is happening today in the world? Certainly we have the COVID pandemic, but also we have two very interesting and sad things happening. One is a wave of nationalism covering all our democracies, threatening our democracies and our freedoms, where a nationalistic mentality has set in that carries within itself racism, tribalism, and the rejection of the other. The second thing that perhaps is a direct result of the pandemic we are living is a dramatic block sort of the justice system. I mean, justice has been paralyzed due to the pandemic. Now, justice was paralyzed in March, April, some places up to May. And courts realized they had to do something that they had been totally reluctant to do before, that was to go cyber. And well, they had to put into place the cyber means, to dispense justice. Judges had to learn to go into Zoom, Microsoft Teams, all these features, Skype, etc. So much so that I sometimes feel we became zombies, or we are suffering from Skypesophenia because people are spending the whole day glued to screen, as you are now. But anyway, we hope to make this fruitful. Now, then courts got paralyzed. Courts and judges, who many times were reluctant to go into e-means, had to go into Zoom, Skype, etc., to dispense justice. Lawyers, who were very reluctant to let the process go, had to go also into their computers so as to not to let justice get delayed or get stuck. Well, and this has pushed the boundaries of the normal beyond anything we could have dreamed. Richard Susskind was yesterday giving a talk at Oxford, and he mentioned, this has pushed the boundaries of legal innovation. In 2 months, they were pushed by more than 6 years. What we thought would be happening in 6 years' time is already here with us. Of course, and it's very interesting because the legal process is a combination of factors. You have access to justice. I mean, how do you spread that access to justice wide and far? How do you give access to justice to the poor, the poorest of the poor? Well, and there have been innovation coming up, like barefoot law in Uganda. Amazing thing what Gerald Abila and his team are doing in Uganda. I'm from Uganda. Well, they are aiming at 50 million inquiries, helping people gain access to justice, to legal processes, advisory in 2030 with the Sustainable Development Goals. And this is an incredible thing, access to justice. That access to justice that has been the purview of a few privileged ones has to expand. And then you are accessing justice, but really sometimes when we think of access to justice, what we are talking about is access to the courts, and that is not justice. If the court system is not functioning, justice will not be dispensed. So when we speak of access to justice, we have to realize that, hey, wait a minute, this justice may be accessed through the courts or by other means, like ADR. So alternative dispute resolution mechanisms come also into place in a beautiful way. So what happens once you are in the court? You have a court process. And this court process is not perfect. In fact, it's rather imperfect or very imperfect. It's a court process that sometimes is the result of 500 years or 1,000 years of experience, but it's a court process that never knew the development of technology as we know it today. Therefore, it's a court process that had been holding technology like holding a tsunami, and anything that happened was seen as a terrible threat to court, to justice, or even to the profession. Because certainly it happened like Uber. Well, when Uber came in, taxis lost their jobs unless they were clever enough to jump into the different Uber or any of these taxi applications. But certainly taxis saw themselves threatened because the system was going to a person who has an app on a mobile and can connect with a willing driver, a willing seller, and a willing buyer, and then get a trip as if it was my personal driver. Well, that model somehow destroyed the traditional model of taxi system where I had to go to the street, be lucky enough for a taxi to be passing, or call a taxi from a place, and the taxi comes and is more expensive. Well, the Uber business challenged the transport system, and this is going to expand. They will continue doing this with Hyperloop and with doing it with flights, aviation. I mean, it will no longer be that I want to go from here to the airport, but I want to go from here to Ghana, to Accra. And of course, Uber will give me all the solutions. Which airline do you want? This is the best. If you leave at this time, you will arrive at this time. I mean, it's coming. It's just a matter of a few improvements in the regulatory system, and it will be there. So, with law, the same thing could happen. And many lawyers foresaw that the inclusion of technology in the legal process would lead to loss of jobs if you are not compliant, if you are not prepared. And then, of course, sometimes we are very mean and we think of my profession, my earnings, my income before justice. And that is not fair. Because certainly it's true, I have a right to an income, I have a right to certainly to charge for my business, but of course justice is the end. My right to income was a means for that person to achieve justice, not the end of the profession of lawyering. So anyway, so things are changing in the courts, and court systems are going to change. Courts of the future are coming. They are already here in many instances. In Dubai and Abu Dhabi, with the courts, e-courts they have set up in the Dispute Resolution Authority of Dubai, which is a court for investors, the average time for resolution of conflicts, and these are huge conflicts, and these are judicial courts, part of the judicial system of the United Arab Emirates, is 4 weeks. In the UK, it's 36 weeks. In Kenya, it's 154. And if we move to the east in India, it is quite dramatic because it reaches and goes beyond 200 weeks average. And in this case, we are not talking of land cases, which are much more complicated, for example, in Kenya. Then you say, well, this is not justice, because justice delayed is justice denied. Then that is the court process. But then what happens after the court process? And here you fall into the prison system. Well, is it really just unfair to send men and women to prison who should not have gone to prison? Men and women who did not know about the process. Men and women who did not have the means to get a lawyer. Well, and this is happening. Sadly, it's rampant. So who ends up going to court? Well, going to prison, in most cases, are the poor who do not have the means to pay a lawyer and do not have the expertise. And in this regard, I am very impressed with the initiative of the African Prisons Project, now called Justice Defenders, where Alex McLean and his team have done incredible work in the prisons in Kenya, Uganda, and the Gambia. Amazing. They have trained hundreds, thousands of prisoners on legal skills, and some of them have graduated as lawyers. And very interesting because a number of them have even finished legal studies and graduated. And they have been granted presidential pardon in Uganda and Kenya, for example. And they are now out there doing an amazing work and preaching to everyone, to young people, well, keep out of crime. And here we have a beautiful initiative by Peter Ouko called Crime Sipoa. Well, all these initiatives somehow come together under the rule of law, because the rule of law covers precisely that, access to justice. Then the court system encourages an alternative dispute resolution, and then the prison system. And of course, an environment of justice, fairness, and freedom in society. The moral order, the legal order, that give law, the respect for law, and the equality of everyone. And of course, the rule of law is somehow covered at night and during the day with a blanket of human rights. So when you have a human rights conducive environment and a rule of law that ties all the loose ends, case society, justice, fairness, court processes, prison services, then of course we have a society that is compliant. Now, all these systems were somehow functioning in parallel. They were disaggregated in a way. Well, and technology is putting them together. So we will find very soon the Uber of justice that gets you from before you reach the court until after you have passed the court, and put everything together. Very many initiatives are coming up. It is incredible the changes the legal profession is going through, and this applies to legal education. I was very impressed before I came to the Commonwealth, where I am now, walking one day through the corridors of Strathmore University. I met a group of students and I asked them, "Hey, what is this you are studying? Because it doesn't look like law." And they say, "No, we are studying, we are teaching ourselves Python." Python is, well, an artificial intelligence program. And these were law students who were studying Python so as to understand how to use technology and how to innovate using artificial intelligence in the legal process. This is already happening, and we have people who are very advanced in this regard, and plenty of initiatives and applications and will come. Of course, this takes time, this takes initiative, it costs money, and sometimes it takes many years until somehow the matter let's say, it reaches that critical mass point, but it is a matter of time. So if you are a university student and you are thinking, I want to concentrate in law and study law, and it's the only thing I do, and I will graduate, and I will go to Kenya School of Law, or Uganda, or Tanzania, or wherever you are, and then I will work in a law firm, and I will make money charging legal fees to the clients who come. You are mistaken. That is not the world of the future. That is not the future of justice. You better start studying mathematics, programming, or find a niche area because law is also getting very, very specialized. There are very interesting courses going on. I have seen in many universities around the world, especially in the developing countries, for example, fashion law, ethical fashion. And you say, wow. And of course, sports law is a huge area which is growing very fast, and international taxation, where you have to know a huge amount of tax regimes and regulatory regimes. But for example, to give you an idea that is already happening, there are people who are creating applications that allow you to buy Apple, Google, Amazon shares from a mobile phone, from an application in Kathmandu. So, well, yes, this is the world of the future. What is the regulatory environment there? How can you be allowed to buy shares of a company in the US from Kathmandu with a mobile phone when you know? Well, precisely, systems are coming together. I see it in the Commonwealth in an impressive way. Britain, for example, is leaving the European Union, but they are very interested in jumping onto the Commonwealth in a very aggressive way, and many other countries. Ghana is getting very interested in collaborating with the Commonwealth because they are going to be the secretariat of the AFTA, the African Continental Free Trade Area. And of course, when this organization starts running, wow, it's incredible that you can produce lollipops in Kenya and sell them in Congo, and the barriers are removed. I mean, anyway, there are very many. This is perhaps a very simplistic example, but there are very many interesting things happening in Africa, across Africa, and many more will happen. So, law of the future is not what we have seen for the past 500 years, perhaps more. Well, in Africa less, but it's not what we have been living. It's not what we have been trained for. And we cannot remain sitting there hoping that a job will come to us. We have to be ahead of innovation. We have to think of the future. And we will have to influence in a big way legislation, because that is the key. If innovation does not go into legislation, or at least into an unregulated space, then it will not thrive. This is also an example of M-Pesa. M-Pesa not only started but survived because the space was unregulated. And when regulation came, it was too late to arrest somehow the situation. And then, of course, the regulatory bodies had to accommodate themselves to the situation. Today, I was sharing the panel of Slota May law firm for practice for managing partners across Africa, and the company secretary and legal boss of EcoBank in Ghana was saying, well, look, it's unbelievable, but COVID has pushed us to put in place all the innovation we thought would take 10 or 15 years to come when it comes to banking. So basically, banking has become far much cheaper and convenient, because instead of having to put a marble counter in an expensive location with 10 or 15 or 20 or 30 people working there to dispense money, to receive money, to get checks, to deposit your checks, you do everything through an application. So the bank counter has become your mobile. What happens with M-Pesa? The bank counter became the shop attendant, the kiosk owner, the petrol attendant. Well, and this reduced incredibly, dramatically, drastically the prices of banking. And it's going to reduce even more, because now it passes even from the kiosk owner to my mobile. Well, this is the issue. This is what is happening with justice. Justice innovation is huge, is big, is exciting. Basically, what is happening is that things are changing very fast, and we will have to change with the times. It's very exciting when I speak to ministers of justice across the Commonwealth. They are all looking forward to innovation, to thinking out of the box. It takes time. Governments move faster or slower, but more slower than faster, but it is coming, and we have to be prepared. So, ladies and gentlemen, it has been a fantastic pleasure. Thank you, Linda, for this wonderful invitation. I am very pleased to have spoken to you, and certainly we will always be in touch. Thank you and all the best. We cannot guarantee success, but we guarantee failure by giving up. Do not give up. Thanks.